We're live.
So good morning, everybody. This is meeting of the Licensure Subcommittee of PEPSC. I am Alexandra Hoskins, and I will be helping facilitate our conversation this morning. Um, I work for the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, and so I represent large districts in terms of my PEPSC representation, and my role is Executive Director of Learning, and I was previously in Human Resources. We have an in-district EPP that was started with federal funding that I oversaw at the time, and I have continued to support that. And I'm glad to be with you this morning. I would ask committee members to come off mute and introduce themselves, and so that we kind of know who's in the room. We've got some new members to the commission on the committee, and I think it would just be helpful for us to kind of get the context of who's part of the conversation this morning.
Hi, I can go next. My name is Rachel Candasa. I'm the 2025 Burroughs Welcome Fund North Carolina Teacher of the Year. I've spent the last 5 years teaching in Pitt County schools, and that's about it from my experience.
Thank you.
I'll go next. I'm Blair Probst. I'm the Assistant Superintendent in Carter County Schools. I've been in Carter County Schools as the Assistant Superintendent for going on 14 years. And so prior to that, I was in Burt County Public Schools as the Executive Director of Human Resources.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Good morning. I'm Paula Gross Price. I am in my 5th year as Dean of the College of Education at North Carolina A&T State University. And I'm a
I think you muted yourself while you were talking.
Alexandra, Chris Blanton is just an observer. So
Okay, and then we know Shannon's on her phone. So and I think
And
uh,
and Connie is also observing.
great. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So our task today is we were given an assignment to review policies and rules that are under consideration for review and revision. And we were asked to pre-read those items, those documents, and come today with information around a summary of those documents and any recommendations for change. And then our task ultimately is to make a recommendation whether or not the rule or policy should move forward in the process as is, or whether there need to be changes, or whether our recommendation as a subcommittee is for that particular rule to not move forward, and we would need to provide justification and rationale for that recommendation. So if I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and so that everybody can see the notes that are being taken, and so that we have full transparency around what is being captured, and we'll just work through the list top to bottom in numerical order, based on the way they were chunked together by DPI staff, for which I am grateful. It makes things a lot easier to have things that are thematically connected to be joined. So I will go ahead and share my screen. All right, so you should be seeing a Word document. Is that, Tom, can you give me a thumbs up if that's what you're seeing? Because you're the only person I can see. Okay, thank you. So we'll start with LICN 001, General Licensure Requirements. It would be my preference that I can pull these all up. I've got them linked in the document if we want to take a look at them, or we can simply provide a summary and take a look at anything that has question or needs further discussion. So I guess my preference would be not to pull the documents up unless there is a need to have further discussion. Does anybody object to that? Okay. So LICN 001 general licensure requirements was one of my assignments. And it is literally what the licensure components are, as well as the definitions of terms that are found throughout the licensure policies and rules. So, 0301 is the general licensure requirements. 0302 are the definitions. I might have that backwards, but it is basic information, very informational and straightforward. And I did not see or have any objections or see any needed changes. Did anybody else review those documents or have comments to make or questions? So my recommendation is that these three move forward as they have been presented by staff. Next up, we have LICN 004 licensure application.
That is me. So this is my first time doing this at all. So please bear with me. But for this one, it does need revision. Looking at the feedback we received, there was confusion on A7B, where it says documentation signed by an official authorized by the EPP to provide such information, verifying that the applicant has completed an EPP for the classification of license sought by the applicant. And currently the rule says recommendation by the EPP or approval by the SBE. And there's confusion about if this change in the process in the application system, if like the licensure officers now have to write something or just submit the recommendations in the NCDPI system. So there's confusion of whether or not that shifts or if they're just doing it on the NCDPI system. But that was the only confusion there with that. Oh, I'm sorry. I lied. Policy 1, the last bullet L under number 1 is not worded correctly. So in the document that we were given, it says documentation of performance on any satisfy any applicable licensure examination requirement, where the NCAC A12 says documentation of performance on any applicable licensure examination requirements. So there is a misprint there. So
Okay.
there is two feedback. One, if they need clarification whether or not it's happening on the NCDPI system for recommendations. And then 2, the last bullet under number 1L, there is a difference between what we were given and the actual policy.
So for the first part, this is Susan Ruiz. I oversee the operational part of licensing. There is no change in procedure. So the recommendation when it's done in state is done in the online licensure system. When it comes from outside of North Carolina, is done on a Form V as in Victor.
Okay.
So am I showing on the screen right now, Rachel, what the part that you were questioning is that right?
Right now, it just shows the original document you had up with all the policy and rules.
Oh, well, then let's do a new share. Thank you. Okay, so is this section, the documentation sign, is this where you were referencing?
Yes, that is where we had one feedback where they're confused whether or not it's changed or if they're still using the authorized NCDPI licensure system for that.
And what Susan was saying is that there is no change, that this is maintained.
Yes.
So, Okay.
Maybe the language that's good feedback. Maybe the language does need to be tweaked around that to not think that, yeah.
Yeah. And so like one of the things I came up with is like maybe it could just say documentation submitted through the NCDPI licensure system and then continue the rest of that sentence for clarification there. But yes.
Okay.
The signed part,
Yeah.
I'm sure has led people to, in North Carolina EPPs to think that something's changed here. That's good. And Rachel, I have to say you did very well. You were
I
very,
know. That's a
You were-
nuance that we missed.
you blew through it so fast I couldn't even keep up.
I'm
So,
sorry. I'll go slower because the next one I have is there's a lot going on that next one.
okay. All right.
Okay. So yeah. So we're going to capture this first one first. And then we're going to go to the next one in this document.
Mhm.
And then we'll get to the next one. Is that good? Because I got to be able to capture what we're saying. So here now I've put the quote, and remind me what section of the document is this?
This is GII. 1GII. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
1.G.II. There we go.
Okay, good.
Oh, no dot between the two the little I's.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So our recommendation is perhaps to say submitted through the North Carolina, would you say, Rachel?
NCDPI system.
Is that good?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll take care of getting Ryan to make sure it reads exactly the way he needs it to. But
Sure.
you get the sentiment in there. That's helpful.
And then the next one is on 1L, and there it just doesn't read the same as on the NCAC A12. So here on 1L, it says documentation of performance on any satisfy any. Where on NCAC A12, it says documentation of performance on any applicable licensure examination requirements.
Oh, so this is okay.
So a typo.
Yeah. And Rachel, are you saying the rule has the same error?
No, it does not.
Okay. It's
yeah.
got the correct language.
Yes, it was just on this document.
And this is 1L.
Yes.
And what's the word that's missing? Documentation of performance.
So here it's saying any twice. So
Oh, gotcha.
Mhm. So it's supposed to say documentation of performance on any applicable licensure examination requirements.
On any
So on any satisfy,
Applicable, yeah.
no. So any satisfy any. Let's highlight that,
Mhm.
Ms. Hoskins, and strike it through. And I think it would read correctly. Let's see. Documentation of performance on applicable licensure examination requirements. On any, we do.
we need one any, right?
Yeah, we do need one any. There we go. All right. I think
All
that
right,
makes
good. And then
That is all I had for that one.
good.
So I've got one thing, and I don't know if I'm seeing, so Ms. Hoskins, could you pull up the rule 334 on this one real quick?
Yep. I'm going to end up with a new appreciation for Kim's ability to share so quickly and adeptly.
Amen to that. I'm amazed at how fast that happens. Okay. So I just want to make sure that the corrected version.
Oh, down here at that L.
Yeah, at the very bottom. Yeah, so 12 is what's L. But
Right.
I'm concerned about this B hanging out. Blair, you're better at this than I am. Is that B corresponding to some, okay. There's an initial A up at the top. Okay, and then this is B going, so there's a whole lot in A. And
Yes.
then the B. Okay, that helps. Thank you. Because I was like, what is that B hanging out there by itself?
That's just the fee that they have to pay.
Okay, I got you. That's it for me then.
All right, good. Next up, and then so Rachel, we're ready. Oh, you had things in the rule or it was in 010 in teacher license.
That was all for teacher license. Yes. So
You have things. Okay.
yeah. So looking at the feedback was really what I have, and this is something I'm really not familiar with, so I can't speak to anything other than the feedback that was given from the field. But there was a lot of feedback about clarifying S-level language for Rule 0304. A lot of people talking about recognizing 60 credit hour master programs in school counseling, speech language pathology, and similar fields that used to be eligible for S-level licensure. And this new rule is not including that. And so there was a lot of feedback about that. So I'm not sure if that's something we discuss here, but when I looked at all the information I was given, that was the number one thing discussed let me see right here. There was feedback from UNC Chapel Hill, NC State, NCCU, and WCU recommending revising the language to acknowledge that some master's program over 60 hours are equivalent in scope to specialist programs. That was pretty much what I got from that rule.
Yeah, so what's happened on this is we recognized that was pretty controversial. There are issues around the specialist license that are going to have to be addressed, but in terms of compromise for moving the rules forward, we've reverted back. In the policy, you'll see 3 there. A qualifying specialist degree must reflect either a 60 credit hour master's program at the master's degree level or a 30-hour master's plus 30 additional. So that is the way that it is currently administered in the state. And we've all agreed that we're going to move this forward in its current state, but with this will be revisited because there's not, what we're recognizing is there's not standardization across the state in regard to this particular issue. But yes, so thank you for bringing that up. And that is by far, you pulled the policy with the most feedback of any policy. But that is our response to that, is that the current version you're reviewing reverts back to the original policy as it was stated.
Okay. Yes, and then everything else was fine then. But yes, I definitely got the look of the draw there, looking at all the feedback.
I hope you enjoyed reading through all that.
It was. It's been a learning experience, definitely.
And we want to make sure, and Miss Rachel, is the rule, I just want to confirm that the rule also reflects that from your perspective.
It does. It does. I'm just looking through it one more time. But yes.
Okay.
So Rachel, give me some language for what it is that we have concerns about the
S-level language.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, technically, Ms. Hoskins, that's not, the problem is that feedback was coming in on the way with policy was written prior to this, we've issued a new version, which you're reviewing now, that no longer contains that controversial language.
Oh, that's why I'm like, when I screen shared, I'm like, I don't even see
Right.
like that. It's not in there.
That's
So,
It's
okay.
not in there now.
So we don't, I don't need to capture anything. What we can actually recommend to proceed with what is actually in the documents as we have them.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Provided you have no objections to that language.
Right.
Okay.
And Rachel, you did not,
I
correct?
do not.
Okay. Thank you. Good. All right. And Rachel, that finishes your stuff, right?
What was that S-level language? Sorry, the one that I did also kind of refers to that a little bit because I did the school special student services. So what is the S-level language as written now?
So it recognizes that a 60-hour master's degree qualifies for a specialist license, or a 30-hour master's degree plus 30 additional graduate level hours.
So there were some things I had read also talked about, like being able to issue if for certain areas, like if they're working on an EDD and they get through so many hours that they could get an S-level license on their way to that EDD. Is that still captured there too?
That would be correct, because so we're talking about the situation. So you're an administrator, you're going for a superintendent's license, let's say, or an EDD in school administration, and you're ABD, all but dissertation. So you can, because the coursework credit hours for most, I don't know of any that fall below 60 credit hours of coursework, it would qualify for a specialist under this rule, because you've completed the coursework, you don't get the EDD, but because the coursework is complete and it is in excess of 60 hours at the master's level or higher, it would qualify for that specialist.
Okay, so because I was trying, there were like in the recommendations, oh yeah, we further recommend PEPSC make sure that the S-level licensures recognize the 60 credit master's programs and the 30 credit postmaster's certificates. So that's covered as well.
That's so that would be provided you already hold a 30-hour master's degree.
Okay.
And then you do a 30-hour postmaster's certificate, that would qualify you for the specialist degree.
Okay, and that's all in that language still?
So it's not, so that's a great question. It is not expressly articulated in that way, but the way the policy is constructed, those two events would qualify under the language of the policy.
As it's been happening so far, nothing is
That's
changing.
right.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I think that brings us to LICN 011. I don't have my list pulled up to show to who reviewed.
That's me.
Okay, all right, good.
All right, so we did it. There's a bit of some information that came back on this one as well. And so the first bit was in regards to the rule and the policy. So with regards to the rule, it was in subsection 1 and subsection 2 in regards to the no, I'm sorry, to the policy. It was subsection 1 and subsection 2. The rule was A and B. And so, and Tom and Susan, help me out here. In regards to that, there was a question about the fact that and I'll just look at the policy. The policy speaks to that the administrative license, they have to meet that general statute 115C 270.20B1. And then it goes on to define who would be the administrator. Well, within that general statute, there is the requirement for the 4 years of teaching and the principal portfolio. And so the question is, in regards to that, when you go down to the number 2 or B, is that's not necessarily required for all those listed as an administrator in that section. Am I correct in saying that?
That is correct. So
Okay.
this is great you brought this up, Blair, because I didn't include this because we have pending legislation in the General Assembly to clarify that a portfolio is not required for anything other than the principal administrator license. Not required. So EPPs may have their own perspective on whether they require a portfolio as part of their coursework requirement or their degree requirements. But we didn't include that because we knew it was going to get fixed in legislation. It's the budget but then we got waylaid by the budget. But the general sense is the General Assembly understands and recognizes this and is going to make that correction, and that portfolio requirement will only apply specifically to a school administrator license and not a general administrator's license.
So as of the state law that's currently in place,
That's right.
it would say that all administrators are required to do that portfolio. So this is reflective of the law, but the law is not. I got you. Okay.
So
if
the reality is if that law does not go through for some reason, this would be a major change, but we did not want to put everybody in a tailspin because we know that we've received our legislative liaisons have received assurances that everybody understands the issue and they're going to correct the issue, and that was not the intent. So we're just going to we can't write a rule that conflicts with current law, though.
Completely understand.
Okay.
So inevitably, if that law passes, then this rule will be revised again.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
There's some S language in mine as well. The other talking point that I read in regards to the feedback goes to when you look at the policy number 5, and then when you look at the rule, it would be E. There was questions about for the administrator for the master's degree, if an individual does one of the MSA certificates, that wouldn't necessarily be included in that particular situation.
So I'm going to try this with Susan to correct me where I make the error. So you can be issued a master's degree in school administration if you hold a master's in some educational field and do what we call a licensure only, or what you're referring to as a certificate program, a non-degree program.
Postmaster's, they referred it to as a postmaster's certificate.
Yeah. So under the provisions of this, that would be an acceptable, because you do meet the requirement of holding a master's degree, and then you're doing the additional work, that postmaster's certificate that is specifically in school administration. So Susan, have I got that right?
Yeah, and there's another nuance to that. Heretofore, if you let's say I'm an elementary teacher and then I go get my MBA and then down the line decide I want to become a principal. Previously, you could use any master's for a licensure only principal program. The law, I believe, currently limits it to a master's of education.
That is correct.
So does there need to be more clarity in this particular policy, or in this particular policy for, because that's what that was, there were multiple questions about that with feedback.
So let's look at 8. An applicant for an administrative license must satisfy. So Blair, I'm hearing you say that technically there's no provision for using an education master's with a post certificate to meet the requirements of holding the license. Is that the concern?
That's how they're reading it, yes.
And I'm keenly interested in how your legal mind sees that.
Well, I mean, if you take the literal sense of it, you're saying master's degree.
Yeah.
So I think if you take the literal sense, and if we're looking at saying that an individual that wants to read this doesn't have to have a legal mind. I don't know about keen legal mind on this side, but a legal mind. The question is, how are they going to read that? And so I think the EPPs on a couple gave a little bit of feedback, said, what about the postmaster's certificate, a certificate that would meet this? Because all they see is the degree.
Well, it is true. You have to hold a master's degree in order to have a principal's license.
Absolutely. I understand that piece.
And I don't think this designates it as an MSA. It could be, but it also doesn't, from my mind, doesn't designate that it has to be a master's degree in education or a related field, however we want to state that. So, Susan, I'm hearing that we would have difficulty holding the line on that MBA who does a postmaster certificate.
Well, in the past, we haven't had any issue with that. I'm sorry, Tom, I can't remember. There's been so much discussion around the legislative definition there. I can't remember where it landed, but I believe it does limit it to a master's of education to do a licensure only principal program. Or am I not remembering that correctly?
No, I do believe that it is restrictive, but we'll need to check. So Ms. Hoskins, my recommendation is to say no to this and recommend legal consult for DPI to consult with legal on the type of masters and Blair, I don't think if we clarify the type of qualifying masters, I don't think the postmaster certificate is an issue because.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
If you're more specific about the type of masters, I think that's fine because you're obviously attaining this MSA.
Well,
Though, Tom, I think that and this is just my own lens, I think the reference to a postmaster certificate is getting into the S-level confusion.
yeah, I agree. And we've got.
I think we should just call it licensure only for purposes of this particular thing.
Well, in 5, it says an applicant shall have completed an administrator prep program. And so that is under the purview of the EPP to say, yes, I think there's got to be, I don't think we've done enough to tie the non-MSA masters to the preparation. That's where my concern is. This doesn't articulate that you must hold a master's degree in an education field in addition to the preparation program if it's not one and the same. And I think we can raise that with Ryan and explain the issue.
Yeah, given that we have this much conversation around it, I think that's fair.
I agree.
The only other comment I had about 5 was there was a question about this portion just talks about the preparation program. It doesn't talk about the testing piece. I'm assuming the way this is written, the testing portion comes in 7, as opposed to having the EPP, the program piece, and the testing piece in 5. So I'm assuming that 7 alludes to the additional testing requirements that would be required for those particular administrators.
When you say 7, you mean number 7.
Number 7, subsection 7, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, and well, now that you say this, well, now you call out 7, I think that's exactly where the language around the educational masters and program I don't want to call it that postmasters, but completion of a program. And the EPP gets to decide what a program, if it's licensure only or if it's a degree program. I think that's where that language should go. And then in 8, an applicant for an administrator license must satisfy any applicable licensure examination requirements before or during the 3rd year of licensure, provided that the applicant attempts the examination at least once. So that does establish the testing requirement.
7, right?
Well, now I'm looking at an old one. I'm sorry.
Don't confuse me. I'm already
I
confused.
know. No. I'm with you. I'm looking at an old one. Ms. Hoskins, can you scroll up just a little bit? Let me amend my earlier statement, Blair.
Okay.
6 could hold. So is an applicant is only eligible for license at the highest degree level which the applicant
No,
completed.
that's salary.
Well, what I'm saying is you can't get an MSA, you can't get an administrator license without completing a master's, is how we want this to read. You can't hold a bachelor's and do just a licensure only MSA program. And that's what Blair is pointing out is not completely evident from this. And so I don't know if it goes in 6 or 7. That's something for Ryan, but we can raise it with Ryan. And then what you're saying is applicant for administrators. Yeah, number 7, I think, covers the testing. The actual test that's required is referenced in LICN 003, or what used to be 003.
Okay. One more about part 7. There was some questions about it, feedback from it. Obviously, and I think there's questions about this with other policies, and particularly when it comes to testing in the first year and passing within the 3rd year, is the monitoring piece of that. I don't know that that is going to be addressed solely in this policy or the rule of who's monitoring, how are you going to monitoring. One of the comments was if an individual goes through the admin program and is not employed in an administrative position, and so who's monitoring whether they tested in the first year or not, and that thing. So I think that also goes back to the license for a teacher as well.
Yeah.
So there was that comment. I know that's something that's going to have to be fleshed out, but I think that's part of the problem with that is the way the law is put. Am I correct in saying that, Tom?
Yep, you are. And so my response to that is, procedure, whether it's on the LEA, whether it's on the EPP, whether it's on DPI, or it's shared responsibility in that, we generally don't put those into policies.
Right.
Those are guidance documents or procedural documents that are issued by, in this case, would be issued by the licensure department to the respective entities that are affected. But I don't think we want to put that into policy for that reason, and for the secondary reason that we don't know how that can be operationalized at this point.
Right.
And so I don't want to lock us into something that we all discover is not tenable. So I would prefer to handle that in procedures and not in policy.
I agree with that. And then the last question about 7 was, does this require the completion of the NCPPA components?
So insofar as the NCPPA is named as the test of record for the State Board of Education, the answer to that question is yes. So the idea is if at some point we have to change that, we'd rather change it in one place than in two places, in two different policies. But to your point, it is well within this subcommittee's authority to recommend that we reference where that test can be found in policy. So you could put something like CLICN, wherever the testing wound up. Susan, is the tests in?
LIC and 003, yes, it
Yes,
is.
yes,
It's a
and
little bit, it's a little tiny bit confusing the way it's put out there now because it doesn't have a minimum score. It's just the completion is good enough.
That's right.
But yeah, it's out there.
But by saying something like CLICN 001, I mean 003, you can make that point of clarity without having us to put the actual test of record and stuff in this portion, which
I
may
think that, yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
okay.
And that's all I have for that policy, but I've got two other rules.
Okay.
Okay,
Could
let,
I
let me let me capture what
Yes.
we just said.
Absolutely.
And then we can move on. So we want to recommend the DPI to consult with legal regarding the type of master's degree, and that I think that fits better in 6, but Ryan can figure that out. And then for 7, we want to recommend adding reference to LICN 003 for principal requirements.
For the testing requirement.
For the principal, thank you, testing requirements. Thank you. Okay, good. So, and then that takes care, does that take care of 305 as well?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what's next?
So I got 0101, which is the definitions, and then I've got 0.0307. Let's go ahead and do 0.0307. I think that's the one that's got more questions on it. That's the additional teaching areas. I will say the feedback from the majority of those that spoke about it were fine and understood the requirement of completing that first area before adding to another area. The only questions and concerns were in regards to the 2 ways to add to an area. And we need Susan's help on this one as well. One of the questions was in regards to certain programs that may not take 24 credit hours to add. And in particular, someone asked about birth to kindergarten being added to a license. There was also a question, and then there was completing programs such as media coordinator, ITF, or AIG may not fit in that 24 hours. Am I saying that correctly, Susan? Or
Well, so the 24 hours really only applies to teaching areas.
right?
And if you've got an elementary license and you want to add BK based on 24, want to add on base, the only way to add that, well, there are 2 ways to add it, either 24 semester hours or you do a program.
Right. And so I guess the question they're saying is, where is that being able to complete that program within those 2 rules, within that rule? And I apologize, I didn't specify where we are in that particular rule. But that's subsection A in A1 and A2.
So and so this assumes that you already have a base teaching license.
Right.
And you want to add other teaching areas without doing a full program. So maybe that needs to be stated differently.
I think that's where the confusion was, because this is talking about adding to that license. And then you've got, and in particular, we got feedback about birth to kindergarten, but I also realized that you've got AIG and as well, and those programs won't satisfy the 24 hours. And I know what you're saying now, but
There's a special provision for AIG that's a little bit unique.
right.
Just like There's a pre-K add-on, but that's by program only.
Right.
So we reviewed this rule in the Ed Prep subcommittee. I don't see this rule on your list. Did we make a mistake somewhere, Kim?
Oh, I think this was one that I accidentally put on. Sorry, Blair.
And Christy is just weighing in, and Christy, feel free to unmic here, that AIG is considered an endorsement.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about are more than an endorsement. So it's considered a full license area, but it cannot be your base license because you didn't complete a program. They're like little riders to your insurance policy.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry about that, Blair, but always glad to hear feedback.
No worries. No problems whatsoever. I think that's all I had for that particular one. It sounds like that was covered somewhere else. We're good. I don't see that on your Ms. Hoskins. I didn't see on your list, but I was also assigned 0.0101. And that was definitions. And I do have actually a question about that one. In particular, subsection 7, permanent employee. And Tom, I just wanted to bring this to your attention. When I looked at this, I also cross-referenced it with the benefits manual that we have, and the definitions are not the same.
Okay. Do you have I don't have the benefits manual up. Do you have the definition?
Sure, I do. And look, I know the benefits manual is a bit technical because it's really specified for benefits, but I'll read it to you. As used in these policies, permanent employee means an employee who is either A, employed to fill a position that is to be permanent if needs and funds continue. A permanent employee is eligible to receive full or pro rata benefits, or B, employed for at least 6 full consecutive months of employment to either replace one or more employees who are on an approved leave of absence without pay, or to fill a vacancy until qualified replacement is employed. Person employed for at least 6 full consecutive months is eligible to receive full pro rata benefits. Therefore, the eligibility for benefits must be determined at the time of the initial assignment or when the assignment status changes. Permanent employees who work at least 30 hours per week must be enrolled in the teacher state employees retirement system. They may be classified as full-time or part-time, but must work a minimum of 20 hours per week. So the hours are different, so to speak, because they speak to permanent employee at least 30 hours. This is saying over 30 hours per week for at least 6 months. So there's just a difference between those two, and I think that could cause some confusion.
So, I mean, this was going to be my next question when you went through all that.
Sure.
Kind of at a high level, does this define it pretty much the same way? I know there's a lot of kinds of conditions that are in the benefits manual that aren't here, but it doesn't sound like, so this doesn't contemplate that. What I thought I heard in this, and tell me if I'm wrong,
sure,
is that this definition of permanent employee doesn't contemplate a part-time permanent employee.
Correct. That's part of it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And again, I don't see that this was assigned to y'all, but I'm glad it was, because
Kim keeps giving me stuff I'm not supposed to be looking at.
Well, I think how it was aligned on what I was given was between 2 rules or something of how it could be aligned, and I associate it with the wrong one. Sorry about that.
No,
but you had really good feedback.
I'm not complaining about what we've gotten out of this. I feel bad that you had to do extra work.
No worries.
I think that's a fair point that, Kim, it really needs to go under the feedback from Ed Prep because we covered this rule with them, if I'm not mistaken.
So do
Okay.
I need to capture it at all in my notes, or does it just need to go with the other notes from the other committee?
Let's do it that way if you don't mind, because they're formally.
That's fine.
And is Chris still on the line?
I don't see him.
I am. I'm just
Oh,
having
there he
trouble
is. There he
unmuting.
is.
Yep, I'm here.
Good. So we're going to have to circle back with your group to indicate
Okay.
that we received some additional feedback on this particular rule. I don't want to usurp your authority and say you're from your perspective, you said it was fine, but we've gotten some feedback. I'd rather it go through your committee, and we'll just Kim, we'll just need to email that whole committee to let them know that this issue is raised and get their thoughts on it.
That's probably the appropriate way to handle it, but for what it's worth, I defer to Blair. You said earlier something about an acute legal mind, and I would whatever Blair says, y'all just assign all of them to Blair.
We all defer to Blair.
That's probably a bad idea. A bad idea. Okay, I'll make 2 more points on this particular policy real quick.
Sure.
The policy refers to full-time, a full-time employee, but it doesn't define full-time employee. Just for what I would do if you're going to refer to it in the policy, I think you refer to it, or the rule, I think you should define it as well. Because it talks about full-time employments, I think in 2 spots. You got part-time employee, but you don't have full-time employee. It seems like it said something about that as well somewhere in here. So I would just suggest you may consider putting full-time employee in there as well, a definition.
And full-time employee is language that is used in this rule?
Yeah. It's used in 6. I know it's used in 6, and it seems like it was used somewhere else, but I'm not sure. And you've got a definition for that in the benefits manual as well.
Okay.
The only other comment is you don't define teacher in here, and it was defined previously in one of the other rules or policies that was sent. I know it refers to a general statute. If that's the comfort level of referring to a general statute for instead of a full definition in there, that's totally up to that group.
Okay.
And with that, I will say I'm done.
Oh, I see. So in 102, you're saying that a teacher is defined. Well, did you even look at 102?
102.
Yeah, rule 102. So to your
No,
point,
I didn't look at 102.
Okay, so to your point, all 102 says is except otherwise provided by law, any person employed as a teacher in North Carolina Public School shall hold or qualified to hold a teacher license issued by the State Board of Education in accordance with section 0.300 of this subchapter. For purposes of this rule, teacher is defined, and it gives the statutory reference.
Yeah,
And
so
you're saying your question is it sufficient to define teacher to point simply to the statute, or should we have some definition in the rule?
To me, it's just easier to see it in the rule as opposed to cross-reference to another. I mean, obviously, if you've got a link to it, then that's helpful, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can add that feedback. So Kim, Dr. Evans, I'm trusting that since this is not on Ms. Hoskins to capture, you've captured this so that we can get this out to the Ed Prep subcommittee.
Yes, I have it.
Great, thank you.
So can I add something? Is this the definitions? Hey, so then some things I was reading, and you got maybe the other committee picked up on this, but I read something that said there is use of public school unit, PSU, local school administrative unit, LSAU, eligible non-public schools, but did not see these defined anywhere. They may be defined in other areas of the NCAC, but their definitions and meanings are important about which licenses are available to which units.
Yeah. So that would, I think that would fall under.
Are those the 301 or 2 definitions?
Yeah, I'm trying to see where
I'm looking at the 30301 and I'm not seeing that PSU, those things defined in there.
And then a second person brought up the definition of non-public school is not clearly provided, and this is critical for EPPs.
Now, I know that non-public school in the residency license policy, I don't know if it's defined there. But if they're defined in the policy, I think they have to define it in the rule, don't they?
So 0301 to Blair's question about teacher does have teacher is defined in general statute and then cites the statute just as an
That's
FYI.
right. Yeah, and that's his question is it useful and helpful to go ahead and define it rather than pointing somebody back to a statute? And I can see, I mean, our general feeling is that K-12 folks, I'm not sure about the EPP folks, live in the world of the policy manuals, they don't regularly go in, with the exception of Mr. Probst, they don't go into the rules or the statutes as much as, and so where we can make everything as plain as possible and clear as possible in the policy, that would be helpful to the field. And we can certainly take that under advisement and consult with legal about this. There is in LIC, and so I can't remember which, it's LIC in 019 on the residency license. For the purposes of this policy, an eligible non-public school is defined in statute. Now, Ms. Patton, to your point, this statutory reference is really tricky because it was passed in a session law very recently, but has not been, but the table of contents, the public facing list of statutes from the NC Ledge has not been updated to reflect this change in that occurred in the session law. So I think what Ed Prep did was go ahead and put a reference to the session law in next to that that statutory reference so people could actually find it. And so, but it is defined, a non-public school is, I mean, an eligible non-public school is defined in that policy, but you're correct, it's not defined in these overall definitions.
And then also PSU and LSAU were the other two.
Yeah, and those are statutory terms. I don't know that we define PSU anywhere, but LSAU is the new statutory language for what we call an LEA. And so Mr. Collins has done quite a bit of work of finding where we refer to things as local boards of education or districts. So there's a lot of synonymous terminology out there that we're trying to get the policies aligned where it's what we consider a district, a traditional district. We're using LSAU, where it's a charter school or a laboratory school, we're using those words, and that PSU becomes the global public school, regardless of what flavor public school you are. But to your point, it's a fair point to put on, and again, I think this goes back to the Ed Prep Subcommittee under they had the bulk of the definitions to question whether PSU, LSAU, and non-eligible public school, non-eligible non-public school needs to be defined in that, and we can pass that along. But that's technically under their purview. And folks, I have to go. I'm already robbed another meeting of 7 minutes. Ms. Hoskins, it sounds to me like we need another session here.
I would agree. I would agree. Yeah, we have some substantial things to discuss in the upcoming policies.
Okay, so if you would do me the favor of working with Dr. Evans about scheduling that, I of course will accommodate what you as best I possibly can. But I think the biggest piece is you folks on the committee getting your schedules aligned, and then I'll work however I can to make sure that I'm here for that. But
Thank you, Dr. Tomberlin, for your help today. Very helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm about to jump off. Thank you all. It was very helpful for me as well.
All right, so I will work with Dr. Evans on finding another date and time for us to reconvene, and we will work through our remaining policies and rules. I want to thank everyone on the call today for a really wonderful and robust conversation, very thoughtful, and thank you for completing the work that was assigned to you so that we can have these conversations. That really makes things a lot easier when we come prepared and we all hold up our end of the bargain. So I really enjoyed the opportunity to get to interact with you a little bit more, and we'll be in touch about the next meeting soon. Any other final comments from anybody else? All right. If not, have a good October 31st.
Thank y'all.